The Bucs take on the Bears, 8:20 p.m. Eastern kickoff this Thursday in the Windy City. Tampa Bay's minus 5.5 on the road, totals 44 and a hook. We're 6-3 in our last 9 NFL tier package plays on Patreon.com/Brock Page. We're also hitting at 67% for the entire 2020 NFL season in that very same package as well. For more information on how you can access this exclusive premium sports content, a link for that site is in the description section below. And once again, that's patreon.com/Brock Page. Now, Chicago's plus $1.85 for some money line cash in this one. The Bears are coming off a tough 8-point loss to the Colts, where they were held to just 11 total points for the game. And their final score came within the waning moments of that ball game, by the way. The Bears had failed to cover the point spread in 2 out of their last 3 ball games. They also rank in the bottom 10 in scoring, bottom 10 in yards per play. McManus and Bush are both questionable for Thursday's game. They're taking on a Tampa squad who ranks in the top 10 in scoring, top 10 in passing, and of course, got to talk about Tom Brady, who's thrown for over 1,100 yards along with 11 touchdowns. Scotty Miller's caught 15 balls for 250 yards and a touchdown. Mike Evans also has 17 grabs for 230 and a staggering 5 touchdown receptions. This Tampa Bay defense also ranks in the top 10 in fewest points allowed, top 3 in fewest rush yards allowed as well. Devin White leads the club in tackles with 37. He also has 3 tackles for loss and a fumble recovery. Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul each have 3 sacks apiece as well. Carlton Davis has 2 picks on the year himself. This Tampa defense is in the top 5 in fewest yards allowed per play. They're also in the top 10 in fewest fourth quarter points allowed. Now keep an eye on these Tampa Bay role-playing running backs, as Leonard Fournette and LaShawn McCoy are both listed as questionable. Big-time wideout Chris Godwin has also been downgraded to doubtful for Thursday. Now, total-wise, the Bucs are 3-1 to the over thus far for the season. Meanwhile, the Bears saw their Week 1 and Week 3 contests get over the line, respectively. The Chicago defense also ranks in the top 10 in most third-quarter points allowed. So with all that in mind, give me the Tampa Bay Bucs minus 5.5 and the over 44.5 in that game. And before we go ahead and move on, I just want to take another quick timeout and welcome you to the video. Got some lines and personal leans out for NFL Week 5. But before we go ahead and dive into some more free content right here on YouTube, I just want to quickly remind you once again that we are currently 6-3 in our last 9 NFL tier package plays on Patreon.com/Brock Page. In addition to that, we're also hitting at 67% for the entire 2020 NFL season in that very same package as well. For more information on how you can join in on the action, link for that site is in the description section below. And once again, that's patreon.com/Brock Page. And moving on, we're going to take a look at the Cardinals Jets, 1 p.m. Eastern start time. The Cardinals are the 6.5 point favorite. Total 47 and a hook, juice to the over. And if you like the Jets in an upset win at home, they're plus 245 for some money line cash. Now, New York gave up 37 points to Denver in their 9-point loss to the Broncos. The Jets are winless in 4 games this season, and they failed to cover the point spread in each and every one of those contests. This New York Jets defense they're also allowing 33 points a game and nearly 130 yards on the ground. They rank in the top 5 in most first quarter and second quarter points allowed. They really like to dig a hole for themselves early. Now, offensively, really haven't gone much better on their side of things. They're averaging just 16 points a game and less than 180 yards through the air. Sam Darnold's completing just 59% of his passes, and he's been sacked 12 times already. He's also thrown 4 interceptions. And keep an eye on Darnold. Chance he might not play, as his non-throwing shoulder's really banged up right now, listed as questionable for Sunday. If I was 0-4, I'd just sit that one out. But anyway, the Jets are in the bottom 3 in yards per play, bottom 3 in second quarter scoring. The following players are questionable to play in addition to Darnold: Jenkins, Perriman, Willis, Wilson, Adoga, Austin, Becton, Davis, And Cager is actually out indefinitely with a hammy. New York's taking on a Cardinals team who's giving up just 179 passing yards per game. Jordan Hicks has 33 tackles on the year, 5.5 TFLs. Devondre Campbell also has 32 tackles on the season, 2 tackles for loss, and 2 PBUs. The Cardinals had marquee wins and covers over Washington and San Francisco this year. They rank in the top 10 in fewest points allowed per contest, top 10 in fewest rush yards allowed per game. Now, defensively, Kennard and Banjo have been listed as questionable. Keep an eye on those guys. And when it comes to the total in this one, the Cardinals are coming off a game with the Panthers that stayed under the posted number. And as a matter of fact, Arizona's officially 4-0 to the under for the entire season. Meanwhile, the Jets, on their side of things, they saw their Week 3 meeting with the Colts stay under the posted total themselves. Give me the Arizona Cardinals minus 6.5 in the under. 47 and a hook in that game. Next matchup I have for you, it is going to be Panthers-Falcons, 1 p.m. East. A little divisional matchup there. The Falcons are the 4-point favorite at home, total 54 and a hook. Now the Falcons are coming off a double-digit Week 4 loss in Green Bay, where they once again gave up 30 points. This Falcons D has given up 30 points or more in all 4 of their games this season, and they also allow over 340 pass yards a game as well. The Falcons rank in the top 3 in most yards allowed per play, top 3 in most fourth quarter points allowed. The Falcons also failed to cover the point spread in their last 2 straight. They're just 1-3 ATS for the entire year. Now keep an eye on these guys. They're a little bit banged up here. Allen, Neal, McKinley, Casey, and Hawkins are all questionable. Julio Jones has been officially listed as questionable as well. Atlanta is taking on a division foe in Carolina, who's currently on a 2-game winning streak themselves. They put up 31 against one of the more astute defenses in the league last week. That's the Arizona Cardinals. They also held the Chargers to just 16 points in their Week 3 victory as well. The Panthers are officially 2-0 against the spread in their last couple of games, and they do rank in the top 10 in the league in passing yards per game. And of course, when it comes to passing and this Carolina team, it's all about Teddy Bridgewater, who's thrown for over 1,100 yards on the season along with 4 touchdowns. Really hard to root against this guy. He's been super efficient, completing 73% of his passes. His favorite target's been Robbie Anderson, who's caught 28 balls for 377 yards and a touchdown. DJ Moore is also averaging 18 yards of reception and amassed 288 yards receiving as well. This Panther offense is also averaging nearly 6.1 yards per play. And believe it or not, defensively, Carolina's been able to shut down their opponent's passing game fairly well this season. They rank in the top 10 in fewest pass yards allowed per game. Jeremy Chin leads the club in tackles with 33 of them. Linebacker Shaq Thompson also has 31 tackles, 3.5 for loss, and a fumble recovery. Russell Okung and Eli Apple are both listed as questionable, so keep an eye on them. Now, total-wise, Carolina's gone 3-1 to the over, depending on where you're shopping at. Meanwhile, 3 out of the Falcons' 4 games on the season got over the line as well. A lot of scoring in these Atlanta games. Give me the underdog Panthers +4 and the over 54.5 in that contest. All right, next game I have for you, it is going to be Bengals-Ravens, 1 p.m. East. The Ravens are -14, numbers 51. And if you like the Bengals in an upset, they're +610 for an outright win. The Bengals are undefeated on the season with regard to the point spread, of course. They successfully covered the number against the likes of Jacksonville, Philadelphia, Cleveland, and the LA Chargers. Once again, they are 4-0 against the spread this season. Very good against the number. They also rank in the top 3 in third quarter scoring, top 10 in offense at time of possession. Joe Burrow's thrown for over 1,100 yards on the season, 6 touchdowns through the air, 1 on the ground. Tyler Boyd, has 28 catches for 320 yards and a touchdown. And rookie T. Higgins also has a dozen receptions for $152 and a couple of scores himself. The Bengals have scored 23 points or more in 3 out of their 4 contests on the season. Now Atkins, Alexander, and Wilson are all listed as questionable for Cincy. The Bengals are taking on a Baltimore team who's 0-2 against the spread in their last couple of games, failed to cover against the Chiefs and Washington during that short span there. So they haven't been as dominant against the number as they are in the outright column. The Ravens are throwing for just $180 a game, and they rank in the top 10 defensively in most pass yards allowed per game. Their secondary is giving up nearly 275 yards through the air per contest. This Ravens D also ranks in the top 10 in most second quarter points allowed. Wolf, Young, Moore, Stanley, and Matabuke are all questionable for Sunday. Now, total-wise, Baltimore's 3-1 to the under for the season. Meanwhile, the Bengals, on the other side of things, they saw their Week 1 and Week 3 matchups stay under the posted line, respectively. Give me the underdog Bengals plus 14, keeping this one respectable, and the under 51 in that contest. All right, next matchup I have for you, it is going to be Jaguars, Texans, 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff in Houston. The Texans are favored by 6. Total's 54. Jags are plus 225 on the money line. Now, Jacksonville successfully covered the number in 2 out of their 4 games on the season thus far, and those were marquee covers against the likes of Indy and Tennessee. Now, the Jags rank in the top 10 in yards per play, and they're throwing for nearly 265 yards per contest. Gardner Minshew's thrown for over 1,100 yards, along with 8 touchdowns. He's currently completing 72% of his passes as well. Now, his favorite target is DJ Chark, who's caught 15 balls for 204 and 3 scores despite missing some significant time. Keelan Cole has also caught the ball 19 times for $194 and a couple of scores himself. Jacksonville ranks in the top 5 in fourth quarter scoring. They're also in the top 3 in fewest fourth quarter points allowed. Eifert, Hayden, Linder, Robinson, and Henderson are all questionable for the Jags. Now, Jacksonville is taking on a winless Houston team who just fired their head coach and GM Bill O'Brien this week. Yet, despite that, they've opened up the betting, laying a touchdown in this matchup here. Houston's in the bottom 5 in scoring, bottom 3 in rushing. Houston's rushed for just 73 yards per game, and they rank in the bottom 3 in offensive time of possession. Now, running back David Johnson's rushed for less than 200 yards, and he averages under 4 yards per carry. Deshaun Watson's also been sacked 16 times on the season as well. This Houston defense has given up 28 points or more in all 4 of their ball games. They rank in the top 5 in most points allowed per game, as well as ranking in the top 3 in most rush yards allowed per game as well. Now, the Houston Texans are allowing nearly 185 yards on the ground per contest. And when it comes to the total in this one, Houston's 2-0 to the over in their last couple of games, 3-1 to the over for the season. Meanwhile, the Jaguars saw 3 out of their 4 contests on the season get over the number themselves. Give me the underdog Jaguars plus 6 and the over 54 in that game. All right, next matchup, it is going to be Rams, Team, 1 p.m. East. The Rams are -9 on the road. Total's 45.5. Juice to the over. And if you like the team at home here, they're plus 320 for an upset victory. Now, Washington's on a 3-game losing streak. 32 points per contest they gave up during that span. They also failed to cover the number in their last 3 straight, depending on where you shopped at for that Baltimore game. But regardless of where you shopped at or who you bet on, Washington's rushing for less than 93 yards a game, and they're scoring just 19 points per contest. They rank in the bottom 10 in passing, bottom 3 in yards per play. Dwayne Haskins has thrown for less than 940 yards, and he completes just 61% of his passes. He's also been sacked 13 times. This Washington D also ranks in the top 10 in most rush yards allowed per contest, top 5 in most first quarter points allowed. Chase Young is questionable. Sims and Holcomb are also questionable. And can't forget about Foster and Sheriff, who are both still on the IR. Now, Washington's taking on a Rams squad who's coming off a solid 17-9 victory over the Giants. Not a whole lot of offensive production, but very good defensively. And that's going to put the Rams at 3-1 straight up on the season, along with 2 successful covers over Dallas and Philadelphia. The Rams are in the top 10 in rushing, top 10 in yards per play. Darrell Henderson's rushed for 223 yards and a couple of scores. He's averaging 5.2 yards per carry. Malcolm Brown's also carried it 45 times for a $182 and 2 touchdowns as well. This Rams defense on the other side ranks in the top 10 in fewest points allowed, top 10 in fewest pass yards allowed as well. Darius Williams has a couple of INTs on the season, 3 PBUs and 11 tackles for Williams. Aaron Donald also has 3.5 sacks on the year despite being double and triple teamed every snap. Donald's got 4.5 tackles for loss and 13 total tackles on the year. The Rams are in the top 5 in fewest first quarter points allowed, top 3 in fewest fourth quarter points allowed as well. Now keep an eye on Akers, Ruler, and Joseph Day as they are questionable for the Rams. Now scoring-wise, when it comes to the total in this one, 2 out of the Rams' last 3 got over the posted total. Meanwhile, Washington's last 2 straight got over the line themselves. They're 3-1 to the over for the season. So with all that in mind, give me the LA Rams -9 in the over, 45.5 in that contest. All right, next matchup, Raiders-Chiefs, 1 p.m. East. The Chiefs are -12, totals 56. KC's in the top 10 in passing, top 10 in rushing. They're averaging nearly 30 points a game and covered the number in 3 out of their 4 ball games. Patty Mahomes has thrown for over 1,100 yards, 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Tight end Travis Kelce is just 3 yards shy of 300 for the year, 24 catches, 2 TDs. And Tyreek Hill has 19 catches for 286 and 4 scores. This Kansas City rushing attack is averaging nearly 130 a game. Rookie Clyde Edwards-Helaire has touched it 71 times for 304 and a TD on the ground. This Chiefs offense is averaging nearly 6.2 yards per play. Meanwhile, defensively, they're only giving up 17 a game, and they're holding their opponents to less than 200 yards through the air. Chris Jones has 3.5 sacks, Frank Clark with 3. Anthony Hitchens also leads the team in tackles with 28. Now keep an eye on Chris Jones as he's battling a groin. And interception leader L'Jarius Sneed is out indefinitely with a collarbone injury. The Chiefs are taking on a Vegas squad who lost their last 2 straight and gave up 66 total points collectively in those losses. Now the Raiders are in the top 10 in rush yards allowed. Not a stat you want to be in. Not a stat you want to be in the top 10. And speaking of which, they're also in the top 10 in yards allowed per play. This LV defense is allowing 30 points a game. And if you're into historical trends, the Raiders have lost 9 out of their last 10 head-to-head meetings with Kansas City. They covered the number in just 30% of those contests. Now, total-wise, the Raiders' most recent contest with the Bills got over the posted total, which was at 52.5. And as a matter of fact, the Raiders are officially 4-0 to the over for the entire season. Meanwhile, KC on the other side ranks in the top 5 in the league in fourth quarter scoring. Give me the Chiefs laying the dozen and the over 56 in that game. And with that, we're going to dive into our next and final matchup of the show. It is going to be Eagles-Steelers, 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff. The Pittsburgh Steelers are the 7-point favorite at home, totals 44. Now, the Steelers should be fairly well rested as their Week 4 contest was canceled. Pittsburgh's averaging 27 points per contest, and they rank in the top 10 in rush yards per contest as well. James Conner's touched it 40 times for 224 yards and a couple of scores. Big Ben's also thrown for 7 touchdowns and connected with Juju Smith-Schuster 3 times in the end zone. In addition to going 3-0 in the season, the Steelers have held their opponents to 21 points or less in all 3 of those contests. They rank in the top 3 in fewest yards allowed per play. They are giving up just 54 yards per game on the ground as well. Now, Mike Hilton leads the club in tackles with 21. He also has a couple of sacks and 4 tackles for loss. TJ Watt has 3.5 sacks on the season and an interception. And Bud Dupree's also has 2.5 sacks along with a forced fumble. The Steelers are in the top 10 in fewest first quarter points allowed, top 5 in fewest fourth quarter points allowed. Now, Allen Johnson and Derek Watt are questionable. They are taking on a really banged-up Eagles squad who failed to cover the number in 3 out of their 4 contests on the season. Now, the Eagles are in the bottom 10 in scoring, bottom 10 in passing. That's right, bottom 10 in pass yards per game. Carson Wentz has completed just 60% of his passes, and he's already thrown 7 interceptions. In addition to that, Carson Wentz has been sacked 14 times on the season. This Philly offense ranks in the bottom 3 in yards per play. The Eagles have failed to win and cover against the likes of Washington and Cincinnati. The Eagles are incredibly banged up right now. Jason Peters on the IR, Vinny Curry and Will Parks out indefinitely. And as a matter of fact, we got a ton more guys to list here. Jeffrey, Williams, Samalu, Goddard, Dillard, Rager, and Watkins will not be participating this Sunday. Meanwhile, there's more. But wait, there's more. Jackson, Maddox, Arcega-Whiteside, and Edwards are all listed as questionable as well. All of the aforementioned players play a critical role on this Philadelphia roster. Now, total-wise, Philly's Week 1 and 2 contests got over the posted total. Meanwhile, the Steelers went 2-0 to the over in their past couple of games themselves. Give me the Steelers -7 and the over 44 in that contest. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me for Part 1, the early games. Be on the lookout for Part 2, the later games, either coming out today or tomorrow. So keep an eye on that. Part 2 will be coming out eventually, once again, either today or tomorrow. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me here on YouTube. Don't forget to check me out on Patreon. If you guys decide to get a package here today, just keep in mind we bill you the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. But most importantly, guys, once again, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, happy Tuesday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage.